I review movie previews.
What's up, good movie lovers? Welcome to a movie review for The Vow. I'm a fan of romantic films, dramas, comedies. Usually I don't review them because bigger films tend to be in the theaters at the time that these films are out, and I usually tend to go for the more high-profile releases. So there will be a lot of spoilers. If you're planning to see this and want to go in with fresh eyes and not really know much about the story, then stop the review after the ratings, which would be worthy of matinee price. This film does what it should and delivers the genre expectations to the audience it's intended for. So with early Valentine's Day weekend coming up, and this really being the only type of film that kind of fits into that release date, creates that mood of romance and all the Valentine's Day goodness. So if you're in the mood and this is your movie, I do not want to crush your dreams. I support your passions. Go for it, but see it at a matinee price. There really isn't anything too new or different here that is going to be worth a regular price. It'll make for a good date night and a great girls' night out. So with that said, I want to get a little deeper here into kind of why this was created, how it unfolded in terms of the story, and what could have been done better. How could this have been an even more interesting film that would have been truly memorable and propelled the genre forward, instead of kind of keeping it just where it's at. It does enough things right that it's different enough, but it doesn't really evolve this genre in many ways. In general, for the last 10 years or so, it seems like romantic dramas, romantic comedies, the biggest change they tend to make are just the faces. I imagine that in Hollywood there's this huge refrigerator door, and instead of magnetic poetry, there's just names of actors, or just their faces. And the executives go in there during their lunch break, they have coffee in one hand, they kind of move around the names and the faces, and they say, McConaughey and Hudson. Yeah, that'll work. Let's think of an idea for him. Or Justin Long and Drew Barrymore. Here we get Rachel McAdams and Channing Tatum. And you can kind of tell that back a couple years ago, when the studio was scheduling their 2012 year, they realized, Valentine's Day 2 isn't going to be ready in time. So the Screen Gems office was ablaze with panic and activity. How are we going to fix this in 2012 February? We need to release for Valentine's Day. And Nicholas Sparks, writer of The Notebook and Dear John, Message in a Bottle, and all the romantic films that have come out in the last 10 years based on his novels, didn't have any new properties, or maybe he was charging too much. And Screen Gems decided to just come up with their own version. They read this newspaper article about a true story where a couple were in a car accident and the wife had amnesia. She could remember everything pretty much up until the beginning of college, and then forgot her whole relationship with her boyfriend and now husband. She didn't remember him at all. So his struggle was, how can he make his wife fall back in love with him? That's a pretty interesting setup. The poster's simple. The title, I kind of wish they would have went even simpler, like, My Wife Doesn't Remember Me. That would have been a little more to the point. I'm actually surprised they didn't, so let's give H. Wood credit on not dumbing it down too much. So the next step for them was like, who do we get involved here? We don't want to have a huge budget for this film. The actors will be the biggest expense. They decided to get the writing team behind Valentine's Day, and He's Just Not That Into You, Abby Cohn and Mark Silverstein. But apparently their version of the film didn't work well enough for them. So they also got Jason Katimas, who really has more TV credits than anything. He's worked on Friday Night Lights and has written episodes of NBC's Parenthood. So that seems to add a little more maturity to the Cohn and Silverstein knowledge base of the rom-com Valentine's Day, He's Just Not That Into You kind of genre set piece specialty. And first-time director here, Michael Suxey, who was a production assistant on like Deep Impact and some films in the late 90s, also looks like he did some tweaks to the screenplay here. So we have a lot of cooks in the kitchen kind of making this one dish. This equals a pretty decent film. I was kind of surprised that there were some nice moments here. The idea behind the story really opens it up to explore relationships and romance in a really interesting way. What if all the work and effort and time and love and energy and memories that go into a 6-year relationship just disappear, and now you have to start over? And what if one person truly doesn't remember loving the other, can you make them fall in love with you again? There's that art to it and the commercialism. The commercialism is there has to be the genre set piece. There has to be those moments where the character who's really pursuing his love or her love does something where they risk it all and it just stands out to us and it just rings true. Here there aren't that many strong moments like that. It feels like the team here tried to stay true to the based on a real life story, and because of that, the drama is a little more diffused than it should be. One of the great things about being able to make things up or to put things on the big screen is that they have to be more intense. They have to be more concentrated. And that means pumping up the drama. That means basing it on a true story, but not this is actually what happened. So I sort of wish they would have made it tougher for both these characters to get back together. The big thing there would be the opposition. So here we could say that the Channing Tatum husband character is the main character. It's really his struggle. Because the wife doesn't remember who she was when they fell in love, there's no motivation for her to get back together with this guy. She actually becomes his opponent. Then you have her parents, who there's this little story of she actually ended up leaving her parents because there was some kind of drama. The father cheated with someone. It kind of tore the family apart. Also, she discovered this artistic side of her, and her parents are a little more business-oriented, a little stuffier, a little more... It's kind of this whole right brain versus left brain, artistic versus logic sort of thing. And the McAdams character hasn't really discovered who she is yet, and that was part of her journey. It's basically her old life comes back into play, and now it clashes with her new life that she's forgotten now, and all that's represented by the husband. Also, there's this ex-fiancé boyfriend character that comes into play. These opposition pieces, the sources of conflict, are totally fine. They're actually really nicely done, where it's Rachel McAdams, the parents, and the ex-fiancé. Those three people, those three elements, could really make things very tough for the husband, but it's played here a little bit too easy. And I feel that happens because that's how it ended up being in real life, instead of, well, what would it really be like in a movie? Take the real life idea, which is something we haven't really seen recently, and now really push it. What does it mean when two people fall in love? Can you really recreate those moments? What if a person does change? One of the common reasons for divorce is that at the time of the divorce, people say, we're not the same people we were when we got married. So there's this element that things always change, transitoriness. How can people stay together if they don't change together? This is kind of a dramatic example where an accident kind of forces this change, and it's a backwards change. But it's this idea that if now one person stays in one spot and the other person moves forward, here they move backward. If they're growing apart, changing, not evolving together, how do people stay close? How does a relationship survive that? And there are a lot of chances here for the characters to fight with each other in dramatic, emotional ways based on kind of who they are, what they want. To talk about life a little more, I think one element just in general missing from all films nowadays is this sort of, let's call it like a philosophical element, where characters don't really have a perspective on how they see themselves and how they see themselves fitting into the world and how they see the world. So that kind of three-angle dynamic there of like, here's my view of what the world is, here's my view of who I am, and now here's what I want out of it. That stuff is just gone. Now we just get more of like a video game thing where it's kind of, you're going through these levels, but you're not really feeling anything about it. You're not really being changed by it too much. And you're not expressing it. I think the one source of storytelling nowadays where characters do express these elements, this dynamic, is reality TV. You know, and that's usually pretty staged anyways, but something like The Amazing Race, Survivor, or The Bachelor, there at least we have those window character confession cam moments where people talk to the camera and they say, here's how I feel about what's going on. Here's what I want, and here's how I view everything. We're missing strong characterization in terms of like what's in people's hearts and their willingness to just share that, just all across the board. So here, when Rachel McAdams becomes her high school self, it's a great thing because we see her early in the film as the more artsy mid-20s girl. But now mentally, she's back to the late teens, early 20s, not really found herself yet girl. That can really play off of kind of what he is now, because Channing Tatum is kind of representing her new self. So I think this film needs to decide on whose perspective are we really seeing this film from? Who's the main character that's really going to be changed here by what's going on? The characters don't feel the impact as strongly as they could have. And I wish that the scenes just would have been rewritten a little bit more and amped up. Amped up in terms of the drama and really dig deep for who these characters are and what they are. McAdams, yes, she's going to be confused and disoriented, and she's trying to remember life and feeling the pressure, but because she remembers everything about who she was before the accident, she should be that person 100%. The parents should even be more aggressive and stronger. The parents, I think, their relationship is probably the most interesting one in the film, and they don't say a lot, but what they reveal says a lot. The Scott Speedman ex-boyfriend fiance character, he kind of ends up being a little bit too cliche. It would have been better if he would have just been more aggressive as well. Make it tough. I think here they try to play it cute. One of the best things about actually seeing this film was that the audience was like 95% female. It's really great to see a movie just in general with a big audience, because when there's laughing and crying going on, you really know that the film's done a great job connecting on an emotional level. I think laughter especially. When there's obviously a joke that the characters made or there's like an awkward moment and the filmmakers are trying to bring a little bit of lightness to something that's heavy to balance things out. And when a comedic moment kind of falls flat, it's really communicated that, the audience isn't 100% with the characters. There are definitely some lines and some close-up here that work really well in terms of the genre where you do get a little bit teared up. And I looked around and there was Kleenex going on. And especially towards the end, there's a pretty good line where McAdams says, "You see me for who I am, not for who you want me to be." And that seemed to kind of ring true to everyone in the theater. There are definitely some nice moments like that throughout the film where you get the sense of this love and the relationship, and it delivers on the genre and it does what it's supposed to. It's just unfortunate that the idea and the concept here really lent itself to explore some things in a fun, different, and challenging way. But in the end, the filmmakers decided to go more towards the Hallmark Lifetime easy lightness TV style versus the big screen, a place where ideas can be explored and challenged a little bit more. It's a safe play, and audiences leave with a smile, feeling that this, did the job that they wanted it to do. Probably the best thing about this film is that in the end, she doesn't have this moment where they go to some magical place where they fell in love and all of her memories rush back. There's no cliche Hollywood easy ending to this. There's just a little scroll at the end where it said that the couple in real life did stay together, they did fall back into love, and they have kids now. And the film ends on them basically deciding to date again. And you get the sense that the Rachel McAdams character is becoming who she was again. So overall, because it's based on a true story, that kind of hinders the powerful possibility and potential of the genre set pieces. There aren't really that many memorable romantic kind of movie moments. There's some good lines, some good scenes, but not enough drama and not enough passion for it to be something more powerful than The Notebook. And I think that ultimately comes down to having characters that weren't as fiery in terms of voicing their beliefs and what they want and willingness to battle with each other. A decent entry into the genre. Overall, does this end up being movie hope or movie apocalypse? I think it's towards the middle because it does try to take some risks in how it doesn't end up like a cliche happy love story. It stays a little bit truer to the real life story. You get the feeling that the filmmakers wanted to stay honest to that, so you can respect that. But on the movie apocalypse side, it ends up being just kind of like this marketing experiment of putting two actors who are in these popular films together, taking a simple idea, and just kind of putting it together without really fleshing out the drama and heightening it, taking it from that real life to movie life. Movie life is a lot more interesting. That's why it's a movie, not a documentary. This is static in terms of the consciousness that it explores, that informs it and creates it and fuels it, that gives it life in the theater. In terms of its place in cinematic history, it's somewhere between The Notebook and A Boyfriend for Christmas. So with that said, consider yourself advised. Remember that H. Wood, or aka StoryCorp, give us more of what we pay for, so choose your movies wisely, and until next time, long live good movies.